Even with the ever-increasing political censorship on social media, Joe Biden is suggesting that there's still too much free speech online. The Biden campaign is now openly telling its supporters to push Facebook into strengthening its rules against misinformation and harmful comments. And in yet another bizarre interview that just aired this week, Joe Biden threatened that the military would remove Trump from office if Biden won the election and President Trump refused to leave. He also said that he was proud of generals for ripping the skin off of President Trump. In the same interview, Joe Biden then claimed that he thinks President Trump will try to steal the election. At the same time, Biden is taking advantage of the chaotic news over the past few weeks by drastically boosting his own campaign spending on Facebook, dumping millions of dollars from his campaign into Facebook ads to accuse President Trump of fanning the flames of hate over the protests. One of the recent news stories that Joe Biden probably does not want people discussing online involves this report from a government watchdog raising questions about Chinese influence at the University of Pennsylvania's Biden Center. While last week a GOP congressman called for a new probe into the University of Pennsylvania's Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. Remarkably, it almost seems like Joe Biden was expecting something big to happen in the news over the past few weeks. Seems very interesting that Biden suddenly just spent $1.6 million on Facebook ads just on Thursday alone, according to Facebook's ad library, which is the most that Biden has spent on Facebook ads in a single day during the 2020 campaign. Biden spent about as much money last week on Facebook ads as he did during the first 10 months of his candidacy. Not surprising that mainstream media outlets like the New York Times are joining in to push Biden's new message for even more censorship against his political opponents online. The Biden campaign telling its supporters to push Facebook into strengthening its rules against what they call misinformation and harmful comments. Of course, this so-called conflict between the Biden campaign and Facebook raises more questions given the known links between Zuckerberg and mainstream Democrats like John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chair. Mentioned in previous videos how Sheryl Sandberg, the company's chief operating officer, in leaked emails tried reaching out to John Podesta for a meeting with Mark Zuckerberg over how to move the needle on policy issues like immigration. Article from the New York Times opens saying the Biden presidential campaign, emboldened by a recent surge in support, is going after a new target, Facebook. They continue saying on Thursday the campaign will circulate a petition and an open letter to Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's chief executive, to change the company's hands-off approach to political speech. That's the description from the New York Times, at least, though I'm sure many watching will likely call this out as a laughably inaccurate characterization of Facebook's approach to the issue up until now, given the level of censorship that we've all already been experiencing online. New York Times acting like these social media companies have been totally hands-off up until now, when that's obviously not true. They add that the petition will be sent to millions of supporters on its email and text message lists and through social media, including Facebook, imploring them to sign the letter. The campaign will also release a video this week to be shared across social media to explain the issue. A quote here reads, "Real changes to Facebook's policies for their platform and how they enforce them are necessary to protect against a repeat of the role that disinformation played in the 2016 election and that continues to threaten our democracy today," said a Biden campaign spokesman. Very interesting timing. Now that we're headed into the next US election, we're seeing a big increase in political censorship on other social media sites as well. Sure, many watching likely heard last month when Twitter put a warning sign on one of the president's tweets calling out problems with mail-in voting. In response to the Biden campaign's demands for more online censorship, Facebook responded saying, quote, "We live in a democracy where the elected officials decide the rules around campaigns. 2 weeks ago, the President of the United States issued an executive order directing federal agencies to prevent social media sites from engaging in activities like fact-checking political statements." They continued saying this week, the Democrat candidate for president started a petition calling on us to do the exact opposite, just as they've done with broadcast networks where the US government prohibits rejecting politicians' campaign ads. The people's elected representatives should set the rules, and we will follow them. There is an election coming in November, and we will protect political speech even when we strongly disagree with it. Meanwhile, the director of communications for President Trump's campaign said the American people can think for themselves. They don't want big tech companies telling them how to think. Finally, looking more at the calls for a probe into the University of Pennsylvania's Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. Article last week in The Hill explains how Representative Matt Gaetz, Republican from Florida, is calling on the Education Department to launch an investigation into the University of Pennsylvania's Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement, citing concerns about accusations of undisclosed donations from Chinese sources. Quote here reads, "The widespread threat of foreign influence in American universities is well known to Congress. These threats are deeply worrisome on their own, and even more so when they risk impacting the integrity of America's elections." In his call for the probe, Gaetz cited a complaint filed with the Education Department by the National Legal and Policy Center, conservative group, alleging that the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement, named after the presumptive Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden, failed to disclose millions in foreign donations, including some from anonymous donors. They do add that the University of Pennsylvania has denied any wrongdoing, telling the Daily Pennsylvanian that the accusations are completely untrue. Gaetz said the Higher Education Act requires institutions to disclose gifts and donations from foreign sources valued at $250,000 or more. Quote, "It's unclear whether the Department of Education has the name of the donor matching the number, but whether it does or not, the law requires the disclosure of the donors' names," he said. Same article then points out how the Education Department launched investigations into 2 other Ivy League schools earlier this year, Harvard and Yale, following similar accusations that they failed to report billions of dollars in foreign funding. Sure, many watching, for example, have heard about the recent indictment against Charles Lieber, a Harvard chemistry professor, over his criminal ties to China. Gaetz said while there has been a spotlight on preventing foreign interference in elections, he believes it's possible adversaries could be using the donations to U.S. institutions to influence American politics. Quote, "The possibility that China may be using anonymous donations in order to impact presidential politics should alarm all Americans, regardless of political affiliation. I sincerely hope this is not the case," he wrote. Looks like Joe Biden is taking some drastic measures to sway the upcoming election. Please let me know what you think about this latest update. If you could give this video a thumbs up, click the like button, that's greatly appreciated, and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. And another reminder, you can also find me over on Twitter. Reality Reader is my name over on Twitter, at Reality Reader, you can find me there. And a big thank you once again everyone who has supported the channel through Patreon or PayPal or with your super chats. Very much appreciated. Even a few dollars makes a huge difference. Helps me keep talking about these issues. Patreon.com/realityreader or paypal.me/realityreader. You can find both those links down in the video description where you can support this channel directly. I will follow up soon. Thanks again.
incredible.